Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sonova and you are watching A News. So let's take a look at today's top stories. European leaders gathered in Copenhagen to discuss Ukraine and a drone war amid rising airspace threats. Israeli forces intercepted 13 Gaza-bound aid boats, prompting activist claims of international law violations. And U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance blames the Democrats for government shutdown. First to Copenhagen, where leaders gathered for the European Political Community Summit to discuss security, energy and the future of cooperation on the continent. Our Andy Mioch has more from the venue.
It is quite a busy day here at the EPC Summit in Copenhagen. As you can see behind me here in the media center, there are hundreds of journalists from across Europe and beyond. All the officials have arrived, sessions and talks are underway, and I can share with you some of the details we got at our own little corner during the arrivals. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev met Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan for bilateral talks at the sidelines of the summit. We got a chance to speak to the EPC Secretary General, who commended the peace process in South Caucasus. Albania's Prime Minister Edi Rama jokingly referred to a verbal slip-up of the U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that Azerbaijan and Albania have now made peace.
It happened thanks to the great leadership of both heads of states, and also thanks to the last push from the President of the United States. So we have to give him credit for that, and it's a great thing.
I mean, it opens possibilities and ways and avenues to have stability and peace in the whole region. And that's extremely important, not only for the two countries, but for South Caucasus, and not only for South Caucasus, but also for all Europe.
We've also heard from Hungary's Viktor Orban and Serbia's Alexander Vučić on the significance of Azerbaijani energy exports to Europe, given the current situation and the war in Ukraine.
Azerbaijan is the golden reserve of the European Union, because we have a lot of difficulties with energy, and you are very rich and you are very cooperative. We have a stable and good leadership.
Hopefully we'll be able to import more from TAP and TANAP in the future, and we are building all necessary facilities in order to get it. And there are no limits, no boundaries for any kind of cooperation and collaboration with Azerbaijan.
There were, of course, messages surrounding the current war between Russia and Ukraine. Romania's President Nicușor Dan spoke of hybrid warfare. He reminded us of his country's experience from the November presidential elections that saw a far-right candidate win. Those elections were later annulled by Romania's top court because of Russian interference.
It's new for any of us. From November to now, we learned some things, but for having all the techniques in order to have a good and effective reaction, we have to learn more.
One of the main topics here at the EPC Summit in Copenhagen is Europe's security, as was yesterday during the informal meeting of the EU27. That's all we have for you for now, but we will bring you updates as soon as we have them. From Copenhagen for A News, Andy Mioch.
Israel's military has intercepted a flotilla carrying aid to Gaza, saying the boats were nearing an active combat zone. But activists on board insist that they have been detained illegally.
Activists on board at least two boats of the global Sumud flotilla heading for Gaza can be seen raising their hands in the air, with the camera footage saying the boats were surrounded by the Israel Defense Forces. The international flotilla, comprising of around 40 civilian vessels, is on its way to the Strip to deliver medicine and food to Gaza. The Israeli Navy ordered a couple of them to change course. They then detained the people on board.
This is the Israeli Navy. You are approaching a blockaded zone. If you wish to deliver aid to Gaza, you may do so through the established channels.
The activists called the actions of the Israeli military illegal, claiming they were intercepted in international waters.
They're about to arrive at one of the vessels. We will be in contact. Also, this interception is in international waters. This is totally illegal and violates international agreements and law.
The Israeli military says the passengers are safe and healthy, noting in particular Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg. Officials say they've been transferred to an Israeli port, adding that the interception took place because the boats were approaching an active combat zone. Despite the disruption, 30 other boats were continuing with their journey Thursday morning. Organisers say they had hoped to reach the Strip on the 2nd of October had they not been intercepted. The flotilla is the latest seaborne attempt to break Israel's blockade of Gaza, much of which has been devastated by almost 2 years of war.
The international community has criticized the move to intercept and detain activists on board the flotilla, 8 boats bound for Gaza. The action has also sparked demonstrations across the globe, with many protesters condemning Israel's actions.
Israel's interception of several vessels of the global Sumud flotilla carrying aid to Gaza has sparked global reactions. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has ordered the expulsion of Israel's entire diplomatic delegation following the detention of 2 Colombian women who were part of the humanitarian flotilla. Calling the detentions a potential new international crime, Petro also announced the immediate termination of Colombia's free trade agreement with Israel. Over in the UK, the government has described Israel's actions as concerning and says it has been in contact with Israeli authorities to ensure a safe resolution. And Turkey's foreign ministry called it an act of terror that endangered the lives of innocent civilians. In Istanbul, hundreds of demonstrators gathered in support of Palestinians and in condemnation of Israeli actions. Protesters assembled outside the Israeli consulate, chanting anti-Israel slogans and urging the Turkish government to take stronger measures in defense of the flotilla.
I also condemn the government in our country for making this mistakes. Let me reiterate this. They urgently need to provide support to the Sumud ships. There are oppressed people there. There are women there. There are even young children.
In Buenos Aires, protesters took to the streets demanding the release of the detained activists. Organisers called the interception a criminal attack and urged world leaders to condemn Israel.
We have been warning all this time to prevent Israel from boarding the flotilla, and it seems that in the last few hours this happened. Our comrades are detained. We demand that the whole world speak out, that all political leaders in our country speak out. We cannot look the other way when they have just suffered a criminal attack.
In Greece, many also gathered outside the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I came here today to show my solidarity to the fighters of the peaceful flotilla, which is carrying food and supplies to the people of Gaza who are starving, and that is being intercepted and hit by the Israeli military navy.
The flotilla consists of 40 civilian boats carrying around 500 people, including parliamentarians, lawyers and activists, and aims to break Israel's blockade of Gaza.
Political tensions are reaching a boiling point in Washington, D.C., with more than 7,500 federal workers now caught in the crossfire, working without pay or locked out entirely. As the U.S. government shutdown enters its second day, the White House is warning that layoffs may come within days if no deal is struck.
The White House has warned that worker layoffs are likely as the government shutdown begins. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said federal agencies are already preparing for cuts. At a joint briefing, Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed that layoffs could happen soon, though no final decisions have been made yet.
We're going to do everything that we can over the coming weeks, if the shutdown lasts that long, to ensure that people get the essential services that they need, despite the fact that Chuck Schumer has shut down the federal government. It's not going to be perfect because we are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
On day one of the shutdown, signs were posted at the Capitol and the Library of Congress informing visitors of closures. Around 750,000 federal workers have been told not to report to work. Meanwhile, military troops and Border Patrol agents must stay on duty without pay. The shutdown is costing the government an estimated $400 million each day.
I do not think this will last as long as the longest shutdown, which was the 2018 shutdown that lasted 35 days. And that's for sort of a reason unrelated to politics. In that shutdown, by day 32, 33, you started to see sort of wildcat strikes or sick-outs among certain workers in the government who were sort of crucial, air traffic controllers, TSA employees, and that quickly sort of put a lot of pressure on both sides to end the shutdown when it started to clog up some major airports in the United States. And I don't think any shutdown will ever go that long again, because I think workers in similar situations will see their power and take actions like that.
President Donald Trump blames Democrats, accusing them of causing the shutdown to protect healthcare subsidies. But Democrats argue that Republicans control Congress and the White House and say the responsibility lies with them.
When the Senate Democrats pick this bill up.
With no deal in sight, the situation is growing more serious, leaving federal workers and many Americans facing an uncertain future.
Continuing with the latest budget deadlock in the United States, the effects are being felt far beyond the halls of Congress. With daily routines disrupted and tensions rising, Americans are reacting in sharply different ways. Here is a closer look at how the gridlock is playing out on the ground.
The ongoing US government funding deadlock is triggering a range of responses from tourists, locals, and federal workers in Washington, D.C. On Wednesday, visitors found many federal buildings closed, including major sites such as the Capitol.
As a citizen, you're just concerned about safety of transportation. Here we are in Washington, D.C. to be able to do things. As a tourist, we spend a lot of money to get here, so hopefully we can do all the things we want to do.
Well, the only thing we cannot do today because of the shutdown is accessing the Capitol. I think it would have been a nice visit, but whatever. Other than that, transportation is not affected, so we are not having any problems, and I assume we won't have any in the upcoming days, hopefully.
Federal employees, however, are feeling the strain more directly. Government workers called the situation stressful and urged lawmakers to resolve the funding impasse quickly, although some locals appeared less concerned by downplaying the broader impact.
Government workers who have been really hurt already, and lots of people's jobs, but it's all the services the government provides that we forget about. You know, I'm traveling, you know, everything from your travel and other things is going to be impacted. So I think it's a serious thing.
It's stressful because you just have all this uncertainty. So I wish they would just get their act together so that we can all do what we do best at work, which is work and work for the American people, because I do work for the government.
We've been Washingtonians for years. The fear of a shutdown? No, there's no fear. There's no fear. Shut it down and we'll still thrive.
Over the past 50 years, the US has experienced 20 shutdowns. Most lasted only a few days, with the average being 8 and the typical just 4 days. Economists say these brief disruptions are unlikely to cause lasting damage, even if they temporarily slow federal services and delay paychecks.
Russian airstrikes have knocked out power to the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear plant, according to Ukraine's energy ministry. The strikes also hit nearby Chernihiv region, cutting electricity to over 300,000 people. Region's governor announced emergency crews are working to restore power, and generators have been sent to hospitals and key sites. Officials warn that even though Chernobyl is not active, the power loss could affect systems that still work to contain radiation. Russian troops took control of the plant briefly during the early days of war with Ukraine. A Russian drone struck again in February, damaging the containment structure's roof. Welcome back to A News. The 7th meeting of the European political community is taking place in Copenhagen, Denmark. Leaders from across the continent have gathered for a wide-ranging dialogue on Europe's most pressing challenges, from the war in Ukraine and hybrid threats to economic resilience and migration. Conceived as a platform for cooperation beyond the European Union framework, the EPC has rapidly become a vital arena for high-level political exchange in today's shifting global order. Denmark, as host, is underscoring the role of smaller European states in shaping the continent's collective security and future. Among the leaders present is Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, who was welcomed by Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, along with other heads of state and government. To help us analyze the significance of the summit and what it means for Europe's broader security architecture, I'm joined by Vlad Olteanu, political analyst in Brussels, and Gustavo de Aristegui, former Spanish diplomat in Rabat. Hello to both of you. Welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you.
Mr. Aristegui, let's start with you. Could you outline why the European political community has become such an important forum in a short period of time?
Well, it is true that the European Union has become a major world actor because it is, by all standards, the second largest commercial, financial, and investment power in the world. But it also has some serious cracks into its present architecture. The European Union, as such, after Brexit, it has become more compact and more united, it is true, but we still have at least two neutral countries in the European Union, Ireland and Austria, and this summit was mainly about defense, and the European Union has no real responsibilities and powers in defense, and there is a great deal of controversy in the European Union, especially among bigger countries, about giving the European Commission a bigger say or a bigger power in defense matters. I must say that I joined that second skepticism. The European Union was meant as a political power, mostly as a commercial, financial power, but it is, of course, the most advanced club of liberal representative democracies in the world, and it is probably the highlight of human rights and freedoms. But this said, is that always the security leg of the European Union has been rather weak. We have tried, for example, to create a border force, Frontex, but it is made out of the forces of the different European countries, and it has proven to be not too effective when we had some very strong migration crisis. Let me remind you about Greece and Turkey with the Syrian refugees, or the sub-Saharan illegal immigrants going through Italy or Spain. Italy has taken unilateral measures that have proven to be very effective. But again, I mean, if you go through the points that have been agreed by the European leaders, some are very important and quite unique, and a quantum leap as far as the European Union being implicated and being given responsibilities in security matters, the European drone, or other things of that sort, for example, the cybersecurity network. But other things, for example, using frozen Russian assets to rebuild and reconstruct Ukraine, that doesn't fall exactly under the security or defense matters. So, in fact, I mean, yes, it is it is a summit with lights and shadows, more lights than shadows. But I do think that we need to build a political European Union in a way that it is still not sufficiently structured before we give it responsibilities in the domain of security and defense.
So, Olteanu, what makes this 7th EPC meeting in Copenhagen particularly significant compared to previous summits?
Well, I think compared to previous summits, this one is at a moment which is extremely interesting in Europe. For a few years, as we know, there is the Russian aggression of Ukraine. But that seems to arrive at a point at which defense or more daring defense measures are contemplated by the European leaders for a number of reasons. One of them is that the United States engage differently. I wouldn't say disengage, but engage differently under the second mandate of President Trump. The other one is the recent provocations coming from Russia. Recent provocations which can include the known episodes and the unknown episodes. So the known episodes, of course, are the cyber attack attacks on various infrastructures of the European Union and in various member states. They include the drones incursions, mistaken incursions into the territory of NATO member states and European Union member states for that sake. And they include allegations, late allegations, that has also started to be the case, the drones, I mean, against civil infrastructure. And there are the serious, maybe not, let's say, direct accusations, but clearly indications that the Danish authorities and Norwegian authorities have actually put forward for the drone surveillance of their airports and the closure of significant airports and significant hubs in Europe. So it's clear that it comes at a moment at which the European leaders look at the security in a different way. It's enough to look at, for instance, at the declarations of President Macron of France at his arrival in Copenhagen, very clearly saying that the strategic ambiguity and basically no answer should be excluded against actions from Russia anymore. So it's clear that it's not just the tone that goes up, it's the tone, it's a defense budget for the European Union, it's probably 800 billion in discussions, it's an European common defense, it's a proposal from the European Commission to have this famous or infamous drone wall on the eastern border of the European Union. So there are a number of things that actually have evolved significantly since the last summit.
Ambassador Gustavo Aristegui, economic security and supply chain resilience are also being highlighted. How does Europe's technological competitiveness factor into this broader discussion?
Well, we should really about the lack of European competitiveness, in fact, because of course, if you make a calculation of companies that are the world leaders in artificial intelligence, the majority of them are American or Chinese. The European Union is lagging behind in many technological aspects. We are lagging behind, for example, in some parts of the missile defense. We are clearly behind the United States, China, or even Ukraine, for that much, or even rogue countries, as is the case of Iran, in high technology drone technology or anti-drone technology. Also, the only company that I know of that is of great importance in drone technology is a French company, but it's the only one in the continent, actually. And actually, when the Russians and the United States are already discussing the design and future development of a sixth-generation fighter jet, the Europeans are still discussing who is going to join the project and what kind of project it's going to be, if it's going to be a single engine or a twin engine, what capacities it's going to have, which companies are going to be joining this project. Really, the European Union, and I'm sorry to be such a critic of it because I am a staunch Europeanist, but frankly, the European Commission was not designed to manage common defense. And this is why we need to strengthen the European leg or the European pillar of defense within NATO for the time being, while we figure out what kind of architecture we want for the common European defense. And again, how can you coordinate defense in a club of nations where you have such different stances and positions on defense itself? You've got Hungary and Slovakia that are, I wouldn't say allies, but friendly towards Putin and Russia. You've got two neutral countries, as I said before, Ireland and Austria, that have a very different approach to these. Of course, they are obviously concerned about the security risks, and then the closer you move to the source of risks, the more conscious they are. And there's been a 180-degree shift in the approach of defense and commitment to defense in two neutral countries, as was the case of Finland and Sweden, because they are very aware of the serious risks that the Russian aggression and expansionism in Eastern Europe and beyond Eastern Europe pose. And unfortunately, mirrors in different parts of the world, and I'm not talking about not world leaders, but political leaders, especially from the extremes, be it the extreme left or the extreme right, have this incomprehensible, I would say, fascination with Putin. It happens with the extreme left in Spain. It happens with the extreme right in other countries in Europe, because they see Vladimir Putin as the savior of a Christian white Europe, which is completely preposterous if you ask me. And then there are some people that thought that they could actually juggle and control Putin, which was the case of President Trump, and it was very obviously not the case. I mean, he is a world leader that has been in power for 26 years, has met with 5 United States presidents, has dealt with every European leader since 1999 to present date, knows exactly how to treat and how to manipulate everyone, and has been trying to gain time for his long-term strategy. We know that the FSB has told the president that they do not see a viability in any kind of peace plan before January of 2026, because it is not in the interest of the Russian Federation. So all of this, the European Union is improvising a reaction. I think it's very good that we're actually discussing all of these things in Copenhagen. I actually think that it's very good that we have some very, very tangible results. The drone war, as has been said already, is a very tangible one, and the cyber security network is also a very tangible one. But let's not forget that right now you have Spanish, Italian jets in Estonia, you have Spanish jets in Romania, you have Spanish Patriot batteries protecting the eastern and southern flanks in Turkey and in Romania and in Estonia, and many other countries are shouldering in their support, but that is in the framework of NATO, not in the framework of the European Union, because in this part, the European political cooperation, let us not forget that it is based on the rule of unanimity. And while that is the rule, nothing substantial is ever going to be achieved. It needs to be built in a different way. And while the larger countries like Germany, France, Italy, mainly, and to a certain extent Spain, because I don't think that the Spanish present government has a real solid stance on the defense pillar of the European Union, are extremely reluctant to give the European Union a bigger say in defense. And I think that it is perfectly understandable. The European Union is not prepared, is not designed, is not built, is not conceived for this. We need to undergo a major restructuring and rebuilding of the European architecture in order to be able to sustain these new responsibilities in the area of defense.
Gustavo Daristegi and Vlad Olteanu, thank you very much for talking to A News, and we greatly appreciate your time and perspectives on this important summit. Thanks a lot. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev met with Moldova's President Maia Sandu in Copenhagen. President Aliyev congratulated Maia Sandu on the victory in the parliamentary elections. Sandu in turn praised President Aliyev for Baku's achievements in Washington on the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agenda. The leaders exchanged views on the prospects of bilateral relations with a particular focus on the broad opportunities for cooperation in the energy sector. Sandu also expressed Moldova's appreciation for Azerbaijan's support during periods of energy need. It's Baku Climate Action Week, and government officials, climate leaders and business experts have come to the vibrant city to drive forward the green transition. Discussions have focused on a range of topics, including strengthening climate resilience across sectors. Today, talks are centered on youth-led initiatives, and our presenter Nadia Jani sent us these.
Today we're at the Heydar Aliyev Center in Baku for the 4th day, and the session is all about art and innovation for the planet, which is being led by youth climate champions. Those attending will get to see artwork that expresses climate awareness and sustainable solutions. Today is about empowering young people with opportunities for learning, recognition and impact. And what better place than to showcase those innovative ideas than at the Heydar Aliyev Center just behind me. Throughout the day, there will be talks held in different locations around the city, focusing on farming, health and women innovating for a greener future. I'm Nadia Jani for A News.
Internet and telecommunication services have finally been restored across the country after 48 hours of complete shutdown in Afghanistan. Our correspondent Tamim Bahiz has more from Kabul.
The blackout began suddenly on Monday evening, leaving citizens without access to calls, online services and banking systems. It wasn't until 5 p.m. on Wednesday evening that connections were brought back online. Across the country and beyond, many people expressed relief and joy as they were once again able to communicate with loved ones, resume business activities and access vital services. One resident described it as a huge relief, saying life felt like it had come to a standstill without the internet. The 3-day suspension caused major disruptions nationwide. Flights were affected, banking and money transfers came to a halt, and everyday life was thrown into chaos. Businesses, students and hospitals also faced severe challenges during the outage. So far, authorities in Kabul have not provided any official explanation for why the shutdown was ordered or why services have been restored. For now, relief outweighs the frustration, but questions remain about whether this could happen again. Tamim Bahiz in Kabul, A News.
Pakistan is seeing a fast rise in solar-powered farming as growers look for cheaper irrigation options, but experts warn this rapid shift is adding new pressure to already failing groundwater levels.
Farmers in Pakistan are rapidly shifting to solar power to run irrigation pumps. The change is cutting costs but increasing pressure on groundwater in Punjab province. About 400,000 tube wells have moved from grid power to solar. Another 250,000 have been added since 2023. In total, around 650,000 tube wells now run on solar energy. This shift has reduced farm electricity use by 45%. Farmers are irrigating more often and growing more rice. Rice fields increased by 30% between 2023 and 2025. But as a result, the water tables are falling fast. According to the officials, 10 cities face serious water depletion. The government is now launching aquifer recharge projects at more than 40 sites and restoring old irrigation systems.
हमें इस पे स्पेशली जो ध्यान देना है वो वाटर क्वालिटी पे है कि व्हाट वी आर इंजेक्टिंग इन द एक्विफर दैट क्वालिटी मस्ट बी इक्वल टू द ड्रिंकिंग वाटर क्वालिटी क्योंकि अगर आपने एक पोल्यूटेड वाटर एक रेन अपने रोड्स से आपने कैच करके उसी को ही इनऑर्गेनिक मैटर्स को और उसमें जिस सारी बायो हैं अपनी इम्प्योरिटीज़ हैं वो सारी की सारी अगर आपने इंजेक्ट कर दी अपने एक्विफर में तो आने वाली नस्लें फिर इसका खमियाजा भुगतेंगी.
Farmers say solar helps them save money and avoid fuel costs.
It keeps my costs low because it runs without diesel and keeps my water supply running smoothly. Over on that side, we would use diesel.
Some say they're making large profits from the switch.
In 4 years, I have made a profit of between $7,000 and $8,000. Even if it is $177 per month, it is around $2,000 per year. It is about $7,000 to $8,000 over 4 years.
Officials warn that without control, solar expansion could worsen Punjab's water crisis.
Turkey is preparing for a major digital leap forward. The government has announced that the nationwide rollout of 5G technology is entering its final phase. Officials say this transition will not only deliver faster internet speeds, but also lay the foundation for a smarter and more reliable digital ecosystem. Preparations for 5G technology across Turkey are nearly complete. The Transport and Infrastructure Minister Abdulkadir Uraloğlu says the official tender is set to take place on the 16th of October in Ankara. The minister explained that 5G is seen not just as a new generation of mobile connectivity, but as a central pillar of the country's digital transformation. Authorities believe the technology will support smarter cities, Industry 4.0 applications, healthcare innovation and self-driving vehicles, thanks to its high speed, low latency and broad connection capacity. Turkey is also looking beyond 5G. The government says it's already secured patents in the field of 6G technology, aiming to position the country as a future leader in next-generation communications. Domestic production is a key part of this plan. Under the end-to-end national 5G project, Turkey will manufacture its own base stations and core network components. New regulations will require up to 60% domestically produced product content and up to 30% of homegrown communications products, with the goal of reducing foreign dependence and strengthening the national economy. Officials highlight that the rollout of 5G will play a vital role in achieving sustainable development goals, while enhancing competitiveness in the global market. Welcome back to A News. Israeli forces have intercepted and taken control of several ships that were part of the global Sumud flotilla, one of the largest international naval missions aimed at breaking Israel's blockade of Gaza. The flotilla, which included more than 40 civilian boats carrying around 500 activists, was intercepted late Wednesday. Activists on board were detained and taken to Israel. The incident has triggered strong international reactions. Turkey, in particular, condemned the interception, calling it a terrorist act that endangered innocent civilians. Ankara's foreign ministry accused the Netanyahu government of pursuing fascist and militarist policies and emphasized that coordination with other countries is ongoing to secure the release of detained citizens. The statement also warned that such attacks could undermine current efforts to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. Now we turn to our guest, Dr. Melih Demirtas, former diplomat and researcher at Cappadocia University, to better understand the implications of this incident, both regionally and internationally. Mr. Demirtas, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Hasanov, for having me.
Dr. Demirtas, first of all, how do you interpret Israel's interception of the global Sumud flotilla?
Mr. Hasanov, actually, Israel's, again, doing the same, maybe harsh or aggressive attitude. It is not diplomacy. We just saw in the United Nations some things can change maybe with maybe attempts of some statement. First of all, Mr. Trump, also our President Erdogan, even Mr. Netanyahu, even these atrocities, even this whole civilian loss, he came to the United Nations, he made his speech. Although the maybe General Assembly was not so maybe full of diplomats, I mean many of them left, as you may be observed. But still, this is the diplomacy. This is the game of the diplomacy. This is the rules of diplomacy. And after that date, we had, I mean, as international experts, as diplomats, we had some hopes that maybe Israel can allow at least some parts of such civilian maybe initiatives. Because the Sumud flotilla is a civilian initiative. First of all, in every maybe a part of Israeli social media, Israeli states, maybe official accounts, they call it like Hamas Sumud flotilla. But no, we can say that any kinds of voices you can find in this flotilla. Of course, there are some Muslims, Islam religious people, there are some leftist people, there are Christians, even some Jewish people, I think, they are in this flotilla. So this is a civilian initiative, and they're making this attempt in international water. So as we have seen, Israel, maybe with all his commandos, with all its maybe very heavy equipments of military equipments, they made this civilian maybe attempt like a nightmare again, like it did maybe several months ago with the Freedom Flotilla. And also 15 years ago, maybe you can remember that Mavi Marmara or Blue Marmara attempt of Turkey, which is another international attempt, but still Israel did the same thing with this aggressive attitude.
Dr. Demirtas, Turkey's reaction was very strong, calling the attack a terrorist act. How do you assess the choice of such harsh wording in diplomatic terms?
I can say step by step, yes, our foreign ministry really increased the voice, the tone, the voice of this diplomatic maybe words. In diplomacy, we have some words, maybe it cannot be used so often, not so easily. But in such a case, in the case of Israel, I think such barriers or such limits of diplomacy is already maybe exceeded. Because Mr. Netanyahu's government and his especially far-rightist elements really pushing all the borders for making such comments for not only Turkey, but if you look at the world now, I think if we have like 200 countries, I think it is not maybe an exaggeration, but maybe 180 or 190 of such countries now blame Israel. We can now also understand that in United Nations maybe level that any parts of this diplomacy cannot be included in this Netanyahu's or far-rightist understanding. So yes, our foreign ministry, Turkish foreign ministry, maybe choice of words are now higher and much more maybe, yes, direct, like an academic text, but it is also the reality. What is now is going on is a genocide. Yes, it is done by Hitler, in modern terms, but we know, really watch a postmodern genocide, which are really observed, which are really watched minute by minute, second by second by our cell phones. I just did not sleep yesterday night, and really second by second, minute by minute, unfortunately, I could not do anything more, but I watched any step of such violations of international law by Israel.
Dr. Demirtas, what leverage does Turkey have to secure the release of its citizens and other detainees?
There are many citizens, Mr. Hasanov. Yes, Turkey has also a responsibility for its own citizens, for any international law responsibility. Any state must have a responsibility to protect its nationals. Even there are some United States nationals there, because some, senators, already applied to Mr. Trump. I do not know still what Mr. Trump thinks about it, but any kind of nationality is now standing at the hands of maybe Israeli forces. But Turkey, first of all, I think with the diplomatic notes, in the diplomatic, from the channel of the diplomatic missions of course, in Israel, they will maybe push all the limits to protect its citizens. But it is the citizens of many countries. First of all, very famous ones, all this, systematic personals, all these climate activists. I already said that there are politicians, leftist personalities. They belong to different nations. And I think one responsibility also to belong to United Nations. Yes. I think Mr. Guterres really showed a real responsible character in the last General Assembly. And now I think we must also call maybe the Security Council or any emergency meeting part, maybe by Mr. Guterres, to act against maybe Israeli attitude to such civilian action.
So from a legal standpoint, how is Israel justifying its actions, and how does international law view such interceptions in international waters?
It is a question of international law, maybe of this last 50, 60 years. What is Palestine for Israel? What is the territory of Palestine for Israel? Or is there any reality of Palestine in the eyes or in the maybe understanding of Israel? And unfortunately, our answer cannot be so positive. Because this is only an entity, only maybe an enclave or a community who can be really forced to flee, who can be really forced to go to another place easily, in the eyes of Israeli officials, especially in this last 2 years. And they always do these things like these are territories of like a, we call in Latin as a terra nullius, like the territory which are not inhabited, which are not in the territory of this responsibility of some personalities. But no, it is the responsibility of real Palestinian Authority there. And the waters, the waters is first of all also responsibility of the Palestinian Authority. Because as you also remember that in the last General Assembly, many countries also accepted and now recognize the state of Palestine. And first of all, the waters are belonging to this Palestinian Authority, but also the happenings, all these violations of Israel last night also happened in international waters, Mr. Hassanov, because this international waters also belonging like, maybe this Egyptian parts, maybe Jordanian parts, even many countries in the Middle East, even Syrian part, even they can have some words in this international water. If they behave like Israel did last night or in this morning, then there can be a very chaotic atmosphere very soon in this Eastern Mediterranean side.
So do you think humanitarian aid missions like this will continue despite such risks, or will this have a chilling effect on international activism?
Again, this is the question of the years of 2000s, because this is the period of much more, maybe we always think about in politics, political science. This is the high tensions, states versus humanity, or states versus individuals. Because now we can look at this digital maybe generations, Generation Z, Generation Z, Generation Y, my generation, even or generations which are older than us. Any parts of the generations now looking at their cell phones, their digital developments, digital needs. So they can really organize in very faster terms, and for any state bureaucracy, for any state maybe authority, it is a nightmare. We must accept that. It is not only the problem of Israel, it is the problem of many states also, because such civilians only demand some real legitimate or maybe just causes. And really they demand sometimes, as this Sumud flotilla maybe demanded for months, there must be justice, there must be real humanity or human solutions, or maybe emergency development now in Palestine. They want to maybe bring all this emergency equipment to Palestine, but they could not make it. So yes, my answer will be such initiatives will continue in this next months, in this next years, because the generations expecting this. States must be maybe ready, much and more, and maybe international law experts must have a new realm to talk about this issue more, because any parts of solutions, any parts of conflicts are always happening between states. No, now in the near term, we have much more individuals, we have much more groups who can really organize in very immediate terms.
Dr. Melih Demirtas, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insights on this sensitive and developing issue. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Hassanov, thank you. I thank you.
That's all for now. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned to A News for more.